see. Just a couple more minutes and the whole world will see us.
Exciting stuff.
Katie, you chatted to us, not to the live stream, right? You know?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just getting all my little pieces of paper and stuff in order here.
Do you want to rename, instead of your email address, put your name?
Oh, yes. She's always taking care of me.
Teamwork here.
Are we live to the world?
Pretty much. The beginning is, you know, we're just slowly like a choo-choo train getting started. And so the recording will include this part, which is kind of fun. And we learned that a couple days ago. In 1 minute, Katie, we'll start the program.
We are excited to be here.
Yeah.
We're super excited and honored to have you guys. I've been talking it up. I shared it on my mom's restaurant in Bozeman, Montana's Facebook page.
I saw that earlier. I was like, oh, that's cool. Who is this? Yeah.
Oh, that's why the cafe popped up.
Yes.
Yep. I wondered the same thing. I saw it pop up on my phone. I was like, huh, well, that's cool. All right.
I was thinking, is that one of the places I ate at?
No, but next time you
Totally
go.
possible.
Yeah.
Yes, next time. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll have to get that background.
Oh, yeah, anytime.
So is that one of your photos in the background?
It is,
Alex?
yeah. Yep.
That's stunning. It's gorgeous.
Thanks. Yeah, there's no shortage of fish in the Philippines, so that's good.
Oh, wow.
And Jennifer, I think I got to meet you when you were at Thunder Bay.
Yeah, briefly. And I met Chuck as well. He set me up with the AV.
Yeah.
Nice.
I have my puddle stones. I was,
All
Pudding
right.
stone.
Oh,
yes,
cool.
I love those.
Yeah, they are.
I'm big into fossils.
They are. Well,
Yeah, you've got some
I
good
always consider it's like good luck. It's going to be a great day if I find a pudding stone or a Petoskey stone.
Petoskey stone. I found my first Petoskey stone this last year and I was so
Oh,
excited.
cool.
Where'd you find it?
That's when I was in, where in Michigan was I?
Traverse City.
Traverse City area. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, we're
was
ready
fun.
to pop, Katie, if you're ready.
We are.
All right.
So welcome to the 9th Annual Thunder Bay International Film Festival. We've got our live Q&A tonight, Protected Waters, Exploring Yellowstone. We're excited to have Jennifer Idle and Alex Rose here, and then my colleague, Stephanie Gondula. Stephanie and I will be hosting. I'm gonna start off tonight, and then she's gonna take over after that. Jennifer Idle and Alex, do you like to go by Alex or Alexandra?
I do. Alex is fine.
Okay,
Thanks.
Alex, phenomenally talented photographers, underwater photographers, and videographers. So we're really excited to hear about your experience and some of the tips or tricks of the trade and what have you. So I'll tell you just a little bit about the Thunder Bay International Film Festival, which this event is part of. This is our 9th year. Our first year we've gone completely virtual. We're really excited about that because now we can have people from all over the world participate. COVID is an opportunity to learn how to work in new ways. And so while we've had lots of in-person events and we hope to consider resume that next year, this year we're testing the technology. So be patient with us. Hopefully everything will go smoothly. Behind the scenes, we've got Chuck Bennett, who is making sure we stay live and our IT is smooth operating. So the National Marine Sanctuary, which is a part of 14 marine sanctuaries around the country, Thunder Bay is one of those. It is currently the only freshwater sanctuary, 4,300 square miles. We've got 200 plus historic shipwrecks that rest in the bottom of the sanctuary. And so it's a fascinating place to study as a maritime archaeologist, to do diving. Many of the shipwrecks you can see them by paddling, so that's popular too, or kayaking. And there's some pretty good fishing there too. So at this point, if you'd like more information, you can go online to thunderbayfriends.org. There you can see the full program for the film festival. But right now, let's get on with the program, and I'll turn it over to Stephanie Gandula.
Thank you so much, Katie. And keep in mind to our audience out there around the world that Katie is still going to be with us. She's going to be monitoring the chat. And so please take the opportunity to ask any questions of our guests, Jennifer and Alex. That's what this is all about, an opportunity to interact in real time with these folks that we're so honored to have on one of our live Q&A panels as a part of the film festival. So chat those in. In fact, everybody, if you want, let us know where you're hailing from tonight. So I'm super excited. I know you guys want to hear from our guests tonight, but I just have to say how excited I am to have them a part of this for many, many reasons. Jennifer has visited the sanctuary before. We got to go diving and get some amazing images of our shipwrecks. I've been following their careers for years. I didn't say stalking, maybe a little bit stalking, but definitely following them for years. Their amazing work, a lot of first time feats they've done, and just their imagery, award-winning imagery, and super excited to have them. And then when they came out with this film from my home state of Montana, well, Yellowstone is in Wyoming a little bit too, but super excited that they were exploring my backyard of Montana and Yellowstone National Park. So very excited. I'll try and curb my enthusiasm a little bit so we can hear from our guests. And I would like to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your inspiration for the film. And I'll start with you, Jennifer.
Hi, I'm super excited to be here as well. Thank you for hosting us, and I hope everyone enjoys tonight's presentation. And again, we have some things that we'll be showing imagery-wise, but don't think it's too formal. It's just a good way to share and have some talking points and maybe inspire you with some of the work that we create. If you haven't checked out Protected Waters Exploring Yellowstone, be sure to do so. And you're welcome to ask questions whether you saw it or not. The inspiration for this particular film started probably with my 50-state journey. So I am the first woman to dive in all 50 states and discovered and learned and loved a lot of our inland waterways. Lake Yellowstone is one of those. It's also our first national park, and I have a big love for our national parks, having visited several of them. I even honeymooned in 5 national parks in Utah. So I have a national park stalking problem.
That's the kind of problem you can have.
Right.
And I love being stalked by my friends at Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. Couldn't have better stalkers. If you haven't been to the sanctuary, it's a beautiful place. And hopefully I get a chance to show you some of the photos that I shot while I was there to give you an idea of the waterway that they have. And it's like they call it a beach, and you don't understand that until you go there and you go, well, yeah, that's a beach. The Great Lakes are great indeed. So when I started the 50-state journey, it was to help connect people with their local waters and to show them, not just myself, what was going on. It was in response to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. I wanted people to love and learn about these local waterways and help us avoid incidents like that in the future. I've been talking with Alex Rose for, oh gosh, how many years is it? A decade? A while.
A while. It's been a bit.
Yes.
We've
And
lost track.
our first in-water trip was the blue whales in La Paz, where we got to connect with a whole group of wonderful divers that we remain connected with and have grown in our friendships and professional relationships to the point that I inspired and coaxed Alex into coming to the cold water side.
Yes, I've been dragged over to the cold side.
And I broke her into long distance driving in the United States.
Yeah, I feel very much like an honorary Texan now, so it's good.
I do come from Austin, Texas, and Texans have a problem with distance. If we tell you it's down the road, you might want to ask how long it takes to get down the road. So we don't talk.
Montana's pretty similar, not as big as Texas, but definitely pretty big spaces. So are you
sure.
in Texas right now, right, Jennifer?
Yes, I'm in Austin right now.
And Alex, you're hailing from?
Chicago area. I'm western suburbs of Chicago. Yep.
Okay. Well, Alex, tell us a little bit about you and your work and your role in the film exploring the waters of Yellowstone.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so a bit about me. My job is I work for Ocean Geographic magazine. We're a quarterly ocean conservation publication based out of Australia, and I've been with them for the last almost 8 years. So I'm their science editor, and I write articles and do underwater photography. I also have an ocean conservation company that I started in 2017 called Blue Ring. We can talk about that stuff later, but that's sort of what I do. And as Jennifer mentioned, she kind of dragged me into this, and I was so upset. No, I'm just kidding. I was amazed by her 50-state journey. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And we started talking about maybe doing some of these locations again, and it turned into hey, maybe this needs to be a completely separate project where we check out our protected waters all around the United States and other places. But it's nice to be able to stay close to home and still see these amazing spots. And it just kind of morphed into this what could be a really cool way to trek around the United States, exploring our protected areas, but underwater. So,
I love it. I think it's such a great idea, and people love those themes. And people also, maybe not a lot of people are aware of the water-based protected areas that we have in our country. There's so many national parks, and then of course the national marine sanctuaries.
For sure.
And your film, just for the audience out there, do take the opportunity. If you haven't seen the film, you can catch it through January 31st at midnight. It'll be available as part of the Thunder Bay International Film Festival. Outstanding 10-minute film, diving right into Yellowstone. And so I do want to ask a question specifically about the film. I just watched it again before tonight's panel for the third or fourth time, and I was impressed this time with the science that's in it. You see the cover photo and you're thinking it's going to be all about diving, which is a lot about diving. But you include a lot of biology and geology, fish facts, and geyser facts. And so either one of you can answer this one, or both of you. How much research did you have to do? Because I don't know if you're a biologist as well, but it seems like there's a lot of research went into this project.
Yeah, so luckily Jennifer has been to Yellowstone quite a few times. I've been only once before we did this. So we at least had some background about Yellowstone topside. But Yellowstone, if you go there, has some really wonderful resources. They've got like a source book that they put out every single year. That's all the updated information on everything about Yellowstone. And it's just this big bound book. And we bought it and just kind of, marked the whole thing with highlighters, went through it, just kind of figured out what pieces of that we wanted to focus on. And then, the internet is such a wealth of knowledge, and the National Park Service has so much info that you can just kind of read through, soak it all in, and then decide what story you want to tell, because there's a lot to cover. And Yellowstone is physically huge. And then also it's just got this gigantically long history, being our oldest national park. So there's a lot to talk about. And it's more of an issue of figuring out how to turn it into a 10-minute film instead of a 10-hour film. Because this was not meant to be a Ken Burns special. This was just a 10-minute thing for us. So it took a bit of time to call it down. But yeah.
Well, and as underwater photographers and filmmakers, we both heavily research what we're going to. It's important to understand, especially when you're working with wildlife, the behaviors, what to expect, when to go to a place. And that requires a little bit of marine biology, science, and background, whether that's a degree like Alex has a master's in marine biology.
Sorry,
or
Alex, I didn't realize that.
I try to be useful.
Or if that's like me, who's had to study it on the fly as background into what I do. With my graphic design background, I have a history of research. So I bring that into every project that I come to. Also, because we work underwater, we have very limited time to get what we need. So we need to make sure we understand the whole breadth of an environment to maximize the impact we can have with our photography.
Definitely.
Outstanding points there. Were there any, you mentioned the wildlife, and then I'm thinking of wildlife in Yellowstone Lake. Was there anything, Jennifer, that you were surprised about with the wildlife or particularly impressed to see?
So that's how this all started. On the 50 state journey, I dove the Silicious Spires in Lake Yellowstone, and my buddy and I noticed these tiny amphipods jumping all over the spires. And we were like, wow, there's a whole ecosystem on this seemingly barren underwater landscape. And then they also had these spherical cyanobacteria at the time when I was diving. So I kind of had an appreciation for invertebrate life in the lake. And Alex and I came to the lake specifically to get a better look at the amphipods and to tell their story. And I'll let Alex jump in on the trophic cascade.
Oh, well, thank you for that segue. So the really fortunate thing about the way Jennifer and I work together is that she's very focused on wide angle and I'm obsessed with macro. So it works out really well. I just say that I'm this way because I'm small and I'm close to the ground all the time. So I just see things that other people don't, but I don't know if that's really why. Anyway, Jennifer told me about these amphipods that live in the lake, and we did a bunch of research before we went and contacted a few scientists, found as many scientific papers as we could about them, because they're sort of a unique species. They're actually not completely sure how many species of them live in the lake, and one may or may not be unique to Yellowstone Lake. They would have to do a lot more genetic analysis on it to find out, but they are really interesting. So the reason that the scientist that we spoke with was studying amphipods is because they're a good indicator of what else is going on in the ecosystem. So about 25 years ago, a lake trout, a different species, an invasive species, was introduced accidentally into the lake. And this has since changed the biology of Yellowstone Lake pretty substantially because at the time, prior to their accidental introduction, the major predator in the lake was a native species called the Yellowstone cutthroat trout. But when they introduced the lake trout accidentally, those are much bigger and they actually eat the local Yellowstone cutthroat trout. So it introduced what Jennifer mentioned as a trophic cascade. So you've added a layer to the food web that wasn't there before. So by looking at predation on small benthic invertebrates, you can tell what's going on much higher, on a higher level in the food chain. And so it's a way to monitor what's happening with the other species. So that's why the little stuff is cool.
That
So
is
much
fascinating.
so much so that even grizzly bears and bald eagles depend on fish as a sustenance.
Mhm.
And if they don't have access to the Yellowstone cutthroat trout because they're being eaten by the new lake trout that do not enter the streams and creeks,
Mhm.
then the bears and the eagles are depleted of a food source.
Mhm.
That's an excellent demonstration of how, you know, it's all connected in the lakes, in the Great Lakes, and of course in the ocean.
Yeah.
You mentioned the cyanobacteria, and that of course makes me think of a very special place we have here in Lake Huron in the marine sanctuary called the Middle Island Sinkhole. So I'm personally
Mhm.
inviting you both to come dive because I think you would love it.
I mean, it's got sinkhole in me.
Yes.
We have to come check it out.
Right. And if I had a picture, I wish I had a picture, but Katie hopefully will share a link in the chat about the Middle Island Sinkhole. And it's only about 75 feet deep at its max. And it's a very rare place, very similar to the geothermic vents and the critters, the cyanobacteria that live in the Yellowstone hot pots
Oh,
are out here in Lake Huron too. So
neat.
you guys
Is
gotta
that part of Thunder Bay?
come. No, not part of Thunder Bay proper. It's a little bit out and north, but it's a popular dive site for sure.
Cool.
So there's your
That
next.
sounds great. Never a shortage of water to go explore, that's for
Right.
sure.
Well, and I definitely wanted to come back and dive some of the deeper wrecks with you. And if we had better visibility, maybe even hit up some of the other wrecks again as well.
Well, we have lots to choose from, as you know. So I know lots of folks are interested in your work as underwater photographers and underwater videographers. And I would like to start out with, what would be your tip, one or two tips or a few tips for somebody? And we often say, our youth who are interested, but you really can decide to become interested in underwater photography at any age. You can learn to dive at any age. So what would you say? I'll start with you, Alex. What would you say to somebody who is considering becoming an underwater photographer?
do it as soon as you can. There are so many wonderful resources now, and the phones have gotten so good. I mean, you can honestly pop an iPhone in a waterproof case, throw a couple lights on it, and you can make a film. And now, especially these higher end ones are all 4K capable. You can honestly make a film with an iPhone if you really want to. And so there's like no excuse anymore. It used to be a cost prohibitive thing where you're like, oh, well, I can't afford a Red Dragon. We can't possibly go do this. And it's like, if you have a smartphone, you can make a film. So if you're passionate about it and you want to do it, get out there and start working towards it. I think my only thing is that sometimes people, especially when they start diving, you want to start taking photos and images right away. And it's best to always, of course, focus on making sure that you're as good of a diver as you can be before you start doing that stuff. So make sure you take the time to invest in, beefing up your actual dive skills. But as soon as you're comfortable with that, yeah, dive right in.
Jennifer, any tips from you?
Oh, yeah. We talk about this subject a lot as image makers. To add on to being a good diver, particularly buoyancy. And that gets into making sure you don't harm yourself, your buddy, or the environment around you. A lot of places are very delicate, especially if you're diving in coral reefs, that kind of fragile structure, or in your historic wrecks. Could you imagine taking a piece of history and breaking it? I mean, you can't fix that. So,
that would be very bad. Don't do that.
Having fantastic buoyancy, being able to hover perfectly is a critical skill. Also, photos, if you've ever had a family member take bad photos and they take the photo and then they move the camera and everyone's blurred, you do have to hold steady. But maybe, more importantly, to the point of creating images or doing something that you want to do, I would say, don't try to mimic what other people have done because your heart won't be in it. Make sure you find what it is you love about the underwater world. Or above water, but there's so much to shoot there, from fashion photography underwater to historic photography, wrecks, macro, wide angle, wildlife, divers, seascapes, caves. There are a broad number of things. Product photography underwater, artistic creation. I was just looking at somebody who shoots photos of flowers underwater in a creative way.
That's
so
cool.
Find the subject that inspires you. And it doesn't have to be something far and away. As a local advocate, it could be your backyard, your spring nearby, a lake nearby. There's all kinds of bodies of water. I mean, as a kid, I would go through creeks and turn over rocks to play with crawfish. So you can find stuff anywhere.
You can find nature anywhere for sure. And the dive local philosophy is something that the sanctuary promotes very much as well. We've got just off the beach here, shallow wrecks that, like Katie was saying in the beginning, you don't even have to be a diver to access these wrecks and not disturb them, like Jennifer said, so they're there for our future generations. Now, I know you guys have traveled the world taking amazing photos, and you must have got your inspiration somewhere. And I'll start with you this time, Jennifer. Can you share one or two people or ideas or places that inspired you to get started?
Yes. And they say never meet your heroes. I've heard that said. I'd say if you shouldn't meet your heroes, pick better heroes.
That's good.
Good. I like that.
Because David Doubilet is at the top of people I admire and love as an image maker, a photographer, a conservationist. He's just thoroughly talented. It was his picture of sea lions that is called, the Audubon of the underwater world. And I found that a really moving photo as I was coming up through underwater photography. And then I'm also good friends with a lot of people in the industry by now. But I'll never forget when one of my dive buddies had photos of Kathy Churches in his house. And he talked about the story and how he met her in Grand Cayman. And so I came to know her as the great Kathy Church long before I had an opportunity to meet her. So when I met her, I told her this. And recently I redesigned her website and I wrote the great Kathy Church on the headline. So now you have the background to where that came from. But she also is a fantastic, I mean, you'll see conservation is a thread between Alex and me. And so the people that I love are also involved in conservation and in making their images tell stories that are meaningful.
Mhm. Well said, well said. How about you, Alex? Inspirations?
So many, but I guess because she's my first and original inspiration, it would have to be Dr. Sylvia Earle. So I was really lucky as a kid. Sylvia Earle had just released her book Sea Change, and she did a speaking engagement in Chicago at Shedd Aquarium. And my parents were like, "Oh, you love this book, we have to take you." So we went, and I got to meet Sylvia when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
And like, it's still a picture that I have on my wall. And I've got like a side by side of a couple of years ago. And then, from then. And she's been a constant source of inspiration. I mean, she's an incredible writer, scientist, activist. I mean, she's just the whole deal. And she's also just a really lovely person, which again speaks to like, pick good heroes. She's definitely one of those people that is just like flawless all the time. And everything that comes out of her mouth is a sound bite, and not intentionally. That's just how she is. And I was very lucky to, in 2015, be the project manager for one of our Ocean Geographic expeditions to the Arctic. And we got to have Sylvia on our 3-week expedition as our lead scientist on her 80th birthday.
Oh,
So we
wow.
got to take Sylvia diving in the Arctic for the first time on her 80th birthday, which was
That's
like
amazing.
pretty much the coolest thing. Yeah. And it was just one of those opportunities where you kind of have to step back and go, okay, this is really unique, really awesome. And I am very lucky to be here right now. And yeah, she's just kind of been a thread throughout my entire career. As far as underwater photography goes, though, I didn't ever think that this is where I would wind up, honestly. I mean, I've got a science background, and I've always loved science writing, and that's kind of where it started. I started writing for Ocean Geographic 8 years ago, and when I started working as their science editor, it became apparent that with everything that I was writing, it was kind of ridiculous that I wasn't using my own images, and I really started to try to make this happen, and applied for a training grant through Women Divers Hall of Fame. And got it. So I was able to buy some underwater camera gear. I needed a housing, so I was able to make that happen. And then it just kind of all developed from there.
Oh, those are great stories. Speaking of conservation, why or how does why is your work important in the role of conservation for our protected areas? And I'll let Jennifer start with that one.
Yeah.
Well, we hope that it's important.
I'm stating that.
I like to think that we bring attention to issues that matter and bring hope and solution ideating for ways that everyday people can contribute to improving the world around us. There are small things you can do, from personal choices about materials you introduce into your home, be that disposable plastic bags or reusable containers. There are simple things that we can do to lower our household costs and increase the value and lessen the impact we have pollution-wise. Also, it brings attention to things you might not be aware of that we have impact on. We are imperfect as a species, and that's okay. We don't advocate for perfection in conservation. We advocate for making a difference where you can, learning about it, and maybe we can even inspire future scientists or future people to get involved in learning about these local regions. I know personally, I have people who have followed in my footsteps and are shooting in some of the places that I call home, and telling stories about it in beautiful new ways and enriching the depth with which they tell those stories. As underwater people, we see, 99% of the water that most people don't get to see. So it's also just important to show what's happening and that it's not a forgotten place. If you do something at the surface, it has impacts to our water, which contributes to the oxygen we breathe, to our freshwater resources. I count my blessings that I live in a country where I have access to fresh, drinkable water from my tap. Not everyone in the world has that. And it's nice to be a part of showing people how valued these resources are.
You had so many good points there. And I really like the showcasing that anybody can contribute and can do small things to help and to not make worse the issues that our planet's waters face. That's what the film festival really tries hard to do, is to, you know, communicate these issues and using the beautiful imagery that you guys use, but also making, not horrifying people, and making it very clear that yes, these are big things that are happening and there's issues we need to deal with, but everybody in the audience can do something to help. And I love that. And the film festival tries hard to do that. And that must be very rewarding, Jennifer, to see people following. You said people are going to places you've gone and telling new stories in different ways, and how rewarding that must be to see that. So Alex, would you speak to that a bit about why you think it's important to address conservation in your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can come at conservation issues from so many different ways. And, you know, for us, it's of course through storytelling. But I always like to remind people, especially when they see a film like this that we put together, we all have such different perspectives on conservation issues and things going on around us, and all of them are important. Like everyone's perspective together, when viewed that way, can really put together all of these pieces of puzzles and reach out to people in different ways that resonate with them. So yeah, for us to be able to go underwater and share the view that many people don't get to see is so exciting. And it's easy to forget when you're a diver and you're around divers that most people aren't divers. And it's both a privilege and a responsibility to take the time to show people what's going on underwater. It's not a view that most people see on a regular basis. And because all of our issues with our waters around the world, you only see such a tiny portion of them on the surface. It's very important to get the deeper view of what's going on, and we hope we can provide that to people.
Oh, that's wonderful outlook on it, a privilege and a responsibility. I agree 100%. So as you look to explore these protected waters, these protected areas, are you doing just national parks, or are you doing other, like maybe national marine sanctuaries, for example? What are your plans for visiting these protected waters?
All the water everywhere. No, I'm just kidding.
It's not just it's not the national parks protected waters.
No.
It is protected waters of all different varieties. And this year, given a lot of the changes in travel, we had plans A, B, C, D, and ultimately we had a local issue here in Texas that came up. We felt like it was just meant for us to cover it. So we covered the Laguna Madre this year. And we're now editing the final cut of that film, but we released our trailer. And that is a protected body of water just outside of North Padre Island National Marine. Is it National Marine Sanctuary?
National Seashore.
National Seashore. Yeah.
One
it's
of those
part of the
nationals.
national park system.
Yeah.
But we were having an issue, particularly with our Kemp's-Ridley sea turtle, and it's connected with the Laguna Madre as a food source for green sea turtles and a huge part of the ecology here with their turtle grass, and how that connects to nesting behavior with the Kemps in particular. So we were telling the story of sea turtles through the Laguna Madre, and it's also 50% of North America's birds come through here.
It's really impressive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of birds.
Ton of birds.
Yes. So we started telling that story this year. We are looking at any new bodies of waters that are being listed and have our sights on a few bodies of water. Glacier National Park was on our list for this year, but that has been pushed back to a couple years probably.
Yeah.
And it's our second national park. So there certainly is a love for the national parks, but it's not exclusive to that. Okay,
well, very good. Very good. So let's get back to Yellowstone, since that's what your film is all about, and exploring that beautiful area. So I spent a lot of time in Yellowstone way before I was a diver, and I'm going back there to dive one day. I never have. And I never saw, when I visited the park, I never saw divers. Did you guys get any funny looks at all when you were there? There's not dive boat charters, right?
There's not people. People don't go to the lake. So we had,
they would definitely look in the back of the truck. They'd be like, what is all that stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, they had no idea what we were there for, and we were
No.
okay with that. So,
Right.
but people don't visit the lake. They go to Old Faithful. They go to, the hot spots, quite literally, of Yellowstone, and they do the top 10, but they don't necessarily look at the park as a whole and the ecology as a whole. You know, it's specific to the geothermal areas. So they go to Grand Prismatic Spring, they go to Old Faithful, they go to the geysers that they know and hear about and go, okay, we have to see a grizzly bear, we have to see bison, and we have to maybe see some elk, because that's what you see here.
You mean
Uh,
amphipods aren't on the list? No, they're missing out.
That's going to be on the brochure next year.
Right?
Arthropods.
That'd be so funny.
Oh, there's a question for you, Alex. Do you want to talk about our necklaces?
Oh, great.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Good question, Harvey.
Thanks for noticing. It's a lovely design by Jennifer Idle. She's very good with the design stuff. So this is actually my logo that Jennifer did design for Blue Ring, my company. So I'll take a minute, I guess, to tell you guys about Blue Ring right now. So I started Blue Ring in 2017 to provide people with a fun and accessible and inexpensive way to get involved in ocean conservation. As we mentioned earlier, sometimes when you talk about issues, they're so large that they're a bit polarizing, and it seems easier to just not do anything because you don't know where to start. And that's why I wanted to do Blue Ring, because it's fun and positive. So it's a $25 annual membership, and people can marry the ocean. You get a pendant or a ring like this guy. And I most recently just made pins. Oh, I have pins now. And every year I donate 71% of my proceeds to a different ocean conservation nonprofit. So yeah, this is my third year donating. And this year the money went to Christina Zanato's organization, which is called People of the Water. And they do cave exploration, like massive amounts of it. And it's so amazing what they're able to accomplish on like a shoestring budget. So very glad we were able to raise some funds for them this year. The year before that was to the Wildlife Conservation Association in Costa Rica to help them protect their beaches for the sea turtles. We have a running theme with sea turtles, Jennifer and I, and hard not to though.
Right.
And then the first year, my first Blue Ring donation went to Deep Hope, which is Dr. Sylvia Earle's nonprofit, where they are building citizen submarines. So yeah, over the course of the 3.5 years I've been around, that's what I've been up to.
Incredible. That's an incredible enterprise. Where do people go if they're interested in marrying the ocean?
Oh yes. Well, you can check out bluering.blue. And it is a .blue address, which seemed appropriate. And in addition to memberships, we also have a whole sustainable product line. So I've got stainless steel water bottles, bamboo utensils, reusable produce bags made out of ghost fishing nets, straws, and then we did masks, of course, this last year. And planning to do some very fun bamboo toothbrushes with blue bristles later in the year. So yeah, just kind of providing different ways for us to all get away from single-use plastics, because that is one of the biggest differences we can make, is just saying no to this stuff. So yeah, that's what
absolutely.
I focus on.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks.
Katie just posted that for the chat, so hopefully you'll get some interest in that for sure. I definitely will be signing up right after we log off tonight.
Yay!
So I want to talk a little bit about the Great Lakes, because you live, Alex, on Lake Michigan.
Yes, I do.
And I'm here on Lake Huron. And I don't want to say struggle, but I guess I would like you to talk about, how do you communicate that the Great Lakes are as important as our ocean, and that we're all connected? I mean, our film festival we try really hard to do that. It's all connected. And what we do here affects what happens in the ocean, and vice versa. So do you come across those challenges? Alex, I'll start with you, living on Lake Michigan.
Absolutely. I mean, even people who live here are often not connected to our local waters. So, when you talk about ocean conservation, that's even more, much farther removed, because that's just a world away. But yeah, I actually use a line very frequently. It's a quote by Dr. Earl. And she always says, every drop of water we drink and every breath we take connects us to the sea, no matter where on earth we live. And it's a good way to kind of just sort of talk to people about this. And one of my top points always is that our waters, even if we're not talking about them from a perspective of drinking water, are responsible for producing our oxygen. So we would quite literally not be alive on Earth if it weren't for all of the water here. So there are so many things that our freshwater and saltwater resources do for us that it's just easy to kind of forget about because we take this stuff for granted. So yeah, I like to usually just break it down into sort of your basics of like, it helps us breathe. It's good for jobs. It's recreation. It's our economy. You know, like we cannot do without water, even if you're not directly connected to it. You just don't realize it. And it's always fun to talk about, especially when people kind of make the connection and want to go out there and kind of see these things for themselves. And I always encourage people, of course, do beach cleanups. There's no shortage of cleanups that need to be done in Chicago area. And it's just good to get out there and connect with other people. And there are so many wonderful organizations in our area. I mean, Shed Aquarium does some wonderful work, Alliance for the Great Lakes, all people that are out there trying to educate everyone about the importance of clean water. So
That's outstanding. I love that quote from Sylvia. That's
it's a good
great.
one.
And Jennifer, you've explored a lot of inland waters, obviously, with your 50-state journey as well. Did you come across any, gaps in, connecting the Great Lakes conservation and Great Lakes to the ocean?
Gaps in connecting you to the ocean, or gaps in
Well, gaps in, I guess, demonstrating the importance of, like Alex was just talking about, all water and how it's all connected. And even though we're way here in the middle of the country, what we do does affect the ocean.
Well, I don't say even though you're in the middle of the country is not how I put it.
I suppose
And the
that's
reason I ask if you're talking about connecting the ocean, because I don't see that necessarily as paramount to having to care about inland waters. I have a big focus on freshwater in particular in my brand and the work that I do, and how that relates to local economies. In some ways, I think freshwater is more connected to the people than the coastal regions on the outside of our continents and countries. And if we look to our inland waterways, yes, they're connected and it's important on how they relate to the oceans, but I think they're important in and of themselves.
Yes.
And as a diver, the Great Lakes, especially for some reason branded down here in Texas, we love big things. And we have a saying that,
well, we do have the greatest lakes. Okay,
yes,
so
we do have a saying that everything is bigger in Texas. And that's in part true, but your lakes are oceanic in and of themselves. And once you get into talking about the kind of the St. Lawrence side of the Great Lakes, that actually has a direct connection to the oceans as you come through. And I know, and I'm going to plug Stephanie's film, the Big Five. She dove all 5 Great Lakes in 24 hours, which is insane. But more time conscientious than doing a 5-year journey, which is what I did. So they're both arduous in different ways. But coming from Texas, I'm saying exploration and adventure, like the Great Lakes were kind of the end all be all for wreck exploration. Almost as big, you hear about North Atlantic diving. In the diving world, Great Lakes are what we call big boy dives. But what people didn't realize is there's also recreational diving to be had in the Great Lakes. People don't know about some of the shallow waters that have wrecks. I didn't know how fragile, some of the wrecks even cross from your shoreline into the water. And that was surprising that you could see it. And it's like, oh, wow, people could actually walk up to some of the wrecks that you have in your sanctuary. So I'd say it's not as important for me and my brand to connect it to the ocean as it is for me to tell the story about these inland waterways, why they're so important, why we shouldn't do things like completely empty the Ogallala Aquifer, why karst country is important, why locally here we had the Kinder Morgan pipeline, which was thankfully finally canceled. Willie Nelson and another celebrity stepped in to help speak up for not running a pipeline directly through the middle of our karst territory. It's not an unlimited water supply, and if we contaminate it, then we can poison our citizens. And one of the nice things about our fresh water is the municipalities provide a clean drinking water source for us that we can trust, that's regulated. That is not so with bottled water. You have no idea where it was sourced, what's in it. You have no idea what the carcinogens from the plastic container have leaked into the water. So clear water and clean water are kind of two different things.
Yeah,
Good point.
excellent. Thank you for those points. And you're absolutely right. The value in and of themselves, these inland waterways, and the value of the Great Lakes in and of themselves, for sure, is of paramount importance to communicate. And we do hope we do that with our Great Lakes content that we've added to the Ocean Film Festival here. There's some really good programming exploring the issues that the Great Lakes face: climate change, harmful algal blooms, invasive species. All important things, microplastics, of course, that
And
lots
Lake
of films.
Lake Erie is a success story that I tell people. People don't realize during the industrial era that it was polluted so badly that they didn't allow people to recreate on the lake. No boating, no swimming. And it took 50 years to reverse some of that, but now people are able to return to Lake Erie for recreational activities.
The Great Lakes are a good spot to look for lots of those success stories, and hopefully more in the future for sure. Now I want to talk about critters, because I have very recently, before COVID, was able to travel to Cuba and do some diving, and I got to snorkel with a crocodile, which is like a dream. And I think, Alex, your photo may have inspired me to do that, and actually made me brave enough to do it, because you were right there with the crocodile. And I was like, okay, that can be done. So I want to ask you, what each of you, we'll start with Alex, and your answer might be the crocodile, might be something different. What was your favorite animal encounter under the water?
That is tough. I mean, the croc is a cool one just because you don't expect to ever be able to have an interaction like that. But I will say, actually, my most memorable underwater interaction is actually with a manta ray. I was with a manta in Raja Ampat, and it was one of those things where I had gone in with my dive group and I had an issue with my camera and wanted to figure out what was going on, but didn't want to miss the dive. So I kind of went up really fast to the boat, took it apart, fixed it. I was like, okay, I can still get 30 minutes in. We'll just hop back in. But I was at the very, very tail end of the group at that point. And I just figured, all right, well, I'll stick back here and stay at the shallow cleaning station and see if I see anything. And wound up pretty much alone, other than the dive master who was watching me, with this big pregnant female manta that just circled me for like 30 minutes the whole time. So I spent maybe 10, 15 minutes taking pictures, and I just put the camera down because I was like, I don't need to take any more pictures. I'm just going to enjoy this experience. And like, these animals can leave anytime. Like, they have no reason. And she wasn't even being cleaned at the time. It was at a cleaning station, but there were no fish on her. And she just wanted to come see me. And it was like, wow, this is just,
that's incredible,
ridiculously cool. So yeah, it's probably my most memorable, my favorite anyway. So yeah.
That's a good one. Jennifer, how about you?
I'm Sharky.
She is Sharky.
You're Sharky. I forgot.
They're adorable.
Yes, they are.
Especially the deep water ones with the big eyes.
Yeah, they have kind of cute derpy faces.
Yes. So, you know, I've known for my salmon shark photography in Alaska. I got to go up there and shoot that. I'd love to go back there. Was in the middle of a shark project in Canada when COVID broke out, so I didn't get to go this last year. And I don't know about this year happening either, but I plan to return to Canada. I lead expeditions and trips, and I've been working with Big Fish Expeditions to lead trips for them. So I encountered the salmon sharks with them. And then also related to the salmon sharks are my crazy paddlefish, which are a prehistoric fish related to sturgeon. And they're more closely related to sharks than they are fish. Even if you look at their skin, it's not scaly like a traditional fish. It's more like a shark. They're bizarre looking fish that can grow to 5 feet long. They're a freshwater fish. People don't think about it. And they have filter feeding like basking sharks. do, which is, it's an unusual, or the manta rays as well,
Mhm.
or the whale sharks. So that they're filter feeders is also unusual. So I lead little mini expeditions out there, and my first trip this year my first trip that I lead for other people will be that trip as well. So I'd say the salmon sharks and the paddlefish, because they're bizarre and unusual.
Mhm.
I like weird things, and I like experiences where I can get within inches of my subject. I love close interactions, respectful interactions, but I love for them to be close enough that I can see them.
Right. Well, then that leads into another question. What is, and I'll let you continue, Jennifer. What is your dream animal to see that you haven't seen yet?
Narwhals. I have I'll be all over the board. The weirder, the better. But I have a saying, Jennifer, don't go chasing narwhals. And what that means to me is like a narwhal's a mythical, imagined creature. And it's like, that's your pipeline, pie in the sky dream. Like, I ask myself, are you chasing narwhals again?
Always, never stop that.
Right. I agree. How about you, Alex? Favorite or dream animal to see?
Well,
You've seen so many.
Exactly. There are so many, but one of them, okay, so I'll go with this one. I've got a more than mild obsession with clownfish, and I do want to photograph all of the species at some point. There aren't a ton of them, so it is totally doable. There are only 30 species, but there's one that's absolutely lovely. That's you can either see it in Lord Howe Island off of Australia, or they have an area called Southwest Rocks, and it's a very cool clownfish called the wide-band anemone fish. And specifically, the females are really, really lovely. So they're really chunky. It's a big, chunky clownfish. They've got these big, wide white bands, and the mature females get these nice, pretty blue lips. They've got like blue liner around their lips, and it's a gorgeous fish. Like they look like a Picasso painting or something. They're just ridiculous. And yeah, I need to shoot them because they're my favorite fish. So I must see it.
That's very cool. I was not expecting that answer at all. Have you dove with polar bears, either of you?
Not been in the water with them, but
We've
have seen them in the Arctic. Yeah. For
I
sure.
I
And they're
think I'd like
wonderful.
to dive with around polar bears. Not
It
as
would be
close up as
incredible.
Jennifer wants to, but
Yeah, I think we would probably both jump in.
Oh, we would do it.
I know you would.
There's
I
not
know
much
you-
Alex and I wouldn't do.
No, there's not much.
That's why we invited you on this.
Love
So
it.
there's a lot. We don't have a ton of time left, but I want to talk a couple more questions about your path, and also a little bit about, well, these are two very different things, I guess, but folks out there who are interested in following in your footsteps, and I mean, talk a little bit about the gear, because especially with cold water diving and all that photography equipment and everything, maybe just summarize, like, how do you deal with all that gear? And I mean, imagine it takes a lot of training. I'll let Alex start with that one.
I was gonna say, I don't know. Jennifer's the cold water person of the bunch. So I have training wise for diving have been more of a warm water diver, because working for Ocean Geographic, a lot of the places that we go are in Asia, Australia, or at least warmer waters, or something where a 7 mil will suffice. But for my 2017 trip to the Arctic, I really figured, well, I'm going to obviously need a dry suit, so I had best get into the diving. And it's a completely different experience. And I just remember being surprised by how bad I felt I was doing after, 10 years diving in a wetsuit, and then suddenly you have a dry suit on. It feels like a totally new experience. And it's just kind of everything else feels new around it too, then. Like having a dry suit and then also using your camera at the same time is like, oh gosh, this is way more to think about. And I think it's just a matter of practicing enough, of course, like everything. But yeah, the thing with diving, I think overall, is that as long as you're comfortable and you have the right gear, you will have a nice time. You don't want to be cold. Being cold is one of the least pleasant things one can do in the water. So yeah, have the right gear. Like, cannot stress enough having the right gear. That's
I've
kind
been
of it.
cold here in Lake Huron, but I think maybe colder on the surface after a dive.
Exactly. Yeah.
Than under the water.
Mm-hmm.
How about
sure.
you, Jennifer? What would be your biggest gear challenge, to narrow down the question?
Oh, goodness.
Or just speak to the all the technical knowledge you have to do what you do underwater.
She's way more techie than me.
I am actually a technical diver. I have colleagues and friends, Becky Kagan-Schott dives rebreathers and does incredible wreck photography in the Great Lakes. Jill Heinerth is also known for her deep exploration and cave exploration and her equipment. I am not on that level of technical diving, but I do dive trimix. I do dive in caves. I do dive in a variety of cold water circumstances. I come from Texas and grew up also with my summers in Florida. So I don't like being cold, believe it or not. But I am kind of branded as a cold water diver. That's how people know me. And
I was going to say, you'd never know.
No, you wouldn't.
But it's because I'm obsessed with the subjects that live in cold waters. And so I overlook a lot of things. I've been diving for 25 years. So I have a number of certifications and training. I continue to evolve and learn and change my kit and build my kit. So, it's not something I started out doing right away. I started out in a wetsuit, but then you want to dive year round. And if you don't live in the tropics, to dive year round, you have to learn to dive in cold water. And that's kind of how I got into cold water diving to begin with. And then I began to love, we dive these things called dry suits that Alex mentioned. They're like bags, kind of, but tight. I guess is the best way.
Uncomfortable bags, yes.
Oh no, I love them. I do not like wetsuits. Wetsuits are tight and everyone can see every lump on you.
And you look so cool in them.
No, I love dry suits. I tell people dry suits are sexy.
I prefer dry suits too. They're more comfortable.
Yes.
So funny.
So, and I do weight training as well to continue because I dive doubles. I dive a lot of heavy cylinders, heavy equipment, the camera equipment. Sometimes we have to haul our equipment for great distances. It's not always in a convenient location.
Right.
Hence Yellowstone.
Yeah, because you didn't have the resources in Yellowstone for, dive shop support.
Nope.
No, I brought everything in. We even brought our food in.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they do have food there. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, but time-wise.
It's expensive though.
And time-wise, people don't realize how big Yellowstone is. It takes an hour to get anywhere.
Yeah.
So when it does that and you have a limited window for getting things, you best bring it all in.
You best bring it all in. Very true. So if you could say one thing to inspire our audience who's chiming in from all over the world and they have a week left to watch your film as a part of the Thunder Bay International Film Festival. Start with you, Jennifer. What one thing would you say to inspire them to and excite them to watch it?
To watch the film?
Yes.
I was just dream big came to my mind. If you can think it, you can do it.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
Alex?
I guess it would just be exploration. So more than anything about the film, the common thread through all of our protected water stuff now and going forward is always going to be exploration. And for us, the concept is way more about how you see things than what you're actually seeing. So exploration is a mindset, and you choose every day whether that's the lens through which you choose to see the world. And if that's how you want to see it and you want things to be new and exciting and fun and inspirational, they can be, and that's your choice. And we hope that by seing a film like this that we made, you can choose it too.
Oh, that's excellent. You've inspired me to go watch it again. Now it'll be for the first time.
Yay!
For the audience, you can do that 24/7 through January 31st. If you haven't already watched Jennifer and Alex's film, it's amazing, and please take an opportunity to do that. And we'll be waiting and hearing for your next project and featuring it. Would love to invite you to be a part of the Thunder Bay International Film Festival in 2022. Yay. When we can do it in person and do some ice diving maybe in January of next year.
We'll have to bring the moonshine, Jennifer.
The peppermint moonshine.
Oh, so good. So good.
Well, I would like to ask Katie to come back on and share a few words about the Friends of the Sanctuary. And I just want to say thank you so much, Jennifer and Alex, for being a part of the film festival. It's really exciting, and we're honored to have you as our guests. And I will for the 99th time, invite you to come diving with us in Thunder Bay, and we'll go to the Middle Island sinkhole and find some of those little critters that you like.
It sounds amazing.
And we have some, I'm from Kentucky, so I know a little bit about moonshine too.
We're always happy to share.
Truly, that was a great discussion. Thank you so much. And you're very inspiring, your passion, your commitment. I think this was a treat for everybody online tonight. So thank you so much. I just want to encourage everybody to check out the Friends of Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary. We're an organization that supports the education outreach and community activities for the sanctuary. And as well as you can go to thunderbayfriends.org and see the full program for the film festival. And there's still so many great events like tonight. And I just can't thank you all enough for sharing your experience, and you make me want to go get that dry suit on right now.
Do it. Thanks for having us. It's been a fun time.
And this will be recorded and posted on the Thunder Bay Friends Inventive site. And so anyone who wants to share it with their friends, please encourage them to watch the recording, because it was definitely worth the time tonight. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you.
Take
See you in the
care.
water, guys. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Under the bubble. See ya.
Thunder Bay.